What would you do if your boss asked you to be his date to the most important business event of the year? That's exactly what happened when Billionaire CEO Marcus Wellington made an unprecedented decision that would change everything. He didn't choose his socialite girlfriend, his business partner, or even a professional escort. Instead, he asked Sarah, his 23-year-old nanny, to accompany him to the annual shareholders gala. But what Sarah did at that gala didn't just shock the 500 most powerful people in the room. It literally brought a multi-million-dollar company to its knees and left everyone questioning everything they thought they knew about power, class, and revenge. Before we begin the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Please subscribe to my channel for more sweet videos like this. Let the story continue. The grand ballroom fell completely silent. 200 of the richest people in the city stopped talking all at once. Their fancy glasses of expensive wine stayed frozen halfway to their lips. Everyone's eyes were glued to the stage where something nobody expected was happening. Sarah Martinez, the quiet nanny who had been taking care of CEO Marcus Wellington's kids for 3 years, was standing at the microphone. But she wasn't the same shy woman who usually hid in the background. Tonight, she wore a stunning red dress that sparkled under the bright lights. Her long black hair flowed down her shoulders like a waterfall. She looked like a movie star. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was what she was holding in her hands. A thick folder filled with papers. Papers that could destroy Marcus Wellington and his entire company forever. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah said into the microphone. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear it shaking just a little bit. "I have something very important to tell you about Wellington Industries. Something that will change everything you think you know about this company." Marcus Wellington, the powerful CEO worth millions of dollars, stood frozen near the back of the room. His face had turned as white as his expensive shirt. His hands were shaking so hard that he dropped his wine glass. It crashed to the floor with a loud sound that echoed through the silent room. "Sarah, don't do this," he whispered, but his voice was too quiet for anyone else to hear. Sarah looked directly at him from the stage. For just a moment, her brave face cracked, and everyone could see tears starting to form in her dark brown eyes. But then she took a deep breath and turned back to face the crowd. "3 months ago, I discovered something terrible," she continued. "Something that Marcus Wellington has been hiding from all of you. Something that puts innocent children in danger every single day." The crowd gasped. Some people started whispering to each other. Marcus tried to push through the crowd toward the stage, but there were too many people in his way. Sarah opened the folder and pulled out the first document. Her hands were shaking now, but she held it up high so everyone could see it. "This company that you all trust, this company that says it cares about families and children, has been." She stopped talking and looked down at the paper in her hands. The whole room waited. Even the fancy waiters carrying trays of food had stopped moving. Marcus finally made it closer to the stage. "Sarah, please," he called out loudly. "You don't understand what you're doing." But Sarah looked up at him with fire in her eyes. "I understand perfectly, Marcus. The question is, do they?" She pointed to the crowd of rich investors, business partners, and important people who had come to this fancy gala dinner. They all looked confused and worried. "Do you want to know the truth about the man you've been giving your money to?" Sarah asked the crowd. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone nodded their heads, wanting to know more. But just as Sarah was about to reveal the terrible secret, something unexpected happened. The lights in the entire ballroom suddenly went out. Everything turned pitch black. People started screaming. Someone had cut the power to stop Sarah from talking. In the darkness, everyone could hear Sarah's voice one more time. "Marcus Wellington is not the man you think he is." And then there was chaos. But how did a simple nanny end up in this position? How did a quiet woman who just took care of children become the person who could destroy one of the most powerful men in the city? And what terrible secret was she about to reveal? To understand that, we need to go back to where it all started. 3 months earlier, when Sarah Martinez first walked through the doors of the Wellington mansion, thinking she was just going to be a regular nanny for a regular rich family. She had no idea that taking this job would change her life forever. And she definitely had no idea that it would lead to this moment, standing on a stage in front of hundreds of people, holding the power to destroy her boss's entire world. Sarah Martinez stood outside the biggest house she had ever seen in her entire life. The Wellington mansion looked like a castle from a fairy tale. It had tall white columns, huge windows that sparkled in the sunlight, and a garden so beautiful it could be in a magazine. She checked her phone one more time to make sure she had the right address. Yes, this was definitely the place. She took a deep breath, smoothed down her simple black dress, and walked up the long stone steps to the front door. Sarah really needed this job. After her mom got sick last year, she had to pay for expensive medicine every month. Her old job at the daycare center didn't pay enough money. When she saw the ad for a nanny position that paid 3 times more than her old job, she knew she had to try for it, even though she felt scared about working for such a rich family. She pressed the doorbell, which played a fancy song instead of just making a normal ringing sound. After a few seconds, the huge wooden door opened. "You must be Sarah," said a kind voice. Sarah looked up and saw the most handsome man she had ever seen in real life. Marcus Wellington was tall, with dark hair and bright blue eyes. He wore an expensive suit that probably cost more than Sarah made in a whole month. But what surprised her most was his smile. It was warm and friendly, not stuck up like she expected from a rich person. "Yes, that's me," Sarah said nervously. "I'm here about the nanny job." "Perfect. Come in," Marcus said, stepping aside to let her into the house. Sarah walked inside and gasped. The entrance hall was bigger than her entire apartment. A beautiful staircase curved up to the second floor. Expensive paintings hung on the walls. Everything looked like it belonged in a museum. "I know it's a lot," Marcus said, noticing her amazed expression. "I felt the same way when I first moved in here after my parents died. Sometimes I still can't believe this is my house." Sarah was surprised by how normal he seemed. In her head, she had imagined that all rich people were mean and looked down on poor people. But Marcus seemed really nice. "Let me show you around," he said, starting to walk through the house. "And I'll tell you about my kids. That's the most important part." As they walked through room after room, Marcus told Sarah about his 2 children. Emma was 8 years old and loved to paint and read books. Tommy was 6 and was obsessed with dinosaurs and building things with blocks. "Their mother passed away 2 years ago," Marcus said quietly as they walked through a beautiful living room with a fireplace. "It's been just the 3 of us since then. I've had other nannies, but none of them really connected with the kids. They saw it as just a job. But Emma and Tommy need someone who actually cares about them." Sarah could hear the sadness in his voice. She felt sorry for those poor kids, losing their mom so young. "I lost my dad when I was 7, Sarah said softly. "I know how hard it is." Marcus stopped walking and looked at her with surprise. "I'm sorry. That must have been really difficult." "It was, but my mom was amazing. She worked 2 jobs to take care of me and my little brother. She taught me that the most important thing is to make sure kids feel loved and safe, no matter what." Marcus smiled. "That's exactly what Emma and Tommy need. Would you like to meet them?" They walked upstairs to a playroom that was bigger than most people's bedrooms. It was filled with toys, books, art supplies, and a huge train set. 2 children were sitting on the floor, playing with building blocks. "Emma, Tommy," Marcus called. "I want you to meet someone special." The little girl looked up first. She had long blonde hair and her father's bright blue eyes. She looked at Sarah carefully, like she was trying to figure out if Sarah was a good person or not. The little boy jumped up right away. He had messy brown hair and was wearing a t-shirt with a dinosaur on it. "Are you going to be our new nanny?" he asked excitedly. "Maybe," Sarah said, kneeling down so she was at their eye level. "What do you think? Should I be your nanny?" Emma stood up slowly. "The last nanny didn't like it when we got dirty," she said. "And she never wanted to play games with us." Sarah looked at the paint stains on Emma's clothes and the dirt under Tommy's fingernails from playing outside. "Well, I think getting dirty means you're having fun. And I love playing games. What's your favorite game?" Tommy's eyes got huge with excitement. "Hide and seek. But grown-ups never want to play because they say the house is too big." "Too big," Sarah said with a grin. "That just means there are more good hiding places." For the next hour, Sarah played hide and seek with the kids, while Marcus watched. She crawled under tables, hid behind curtains, and even climbed into a big toy chest. The kids laughed harder than they had in months. When it was time for Sarah to leave, Emma tugged on her dress. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked hopefully. "If your dad wants me to," Sarah said. Marcus walked Sarah to the front door. "You're hired," he said. The kids haven't smiled like that since their mother died. "When can you start?" "Tomorrow," Sarah said happily. As Sarah walked to her old beat-up car, she felt like the luckiest person in the world. Not only did she get the job, but Marcus and his kids seemed like wonderful people. She couldn't wait to start working for them. But as she drove home that night, Sarah had no idea what she was really walking into. She thought she had found the perfect job with the perfect family. She had no clue that Marcus Wellington was hiding dark secrets that would soon put her in terrible danger. She definitely didn't know that in just 3 months, she would be standing on a stage in front of hundreds of people, holding papers that could destroy Marcus's life forever. And she absolutely had no idea that the perfect man who had just hired her was about to become the most dangerous person she would ever meet. The very next morning, Sarah showed up at the Wellington mansion bright and early, excited to start her new life. She walked through those big front doors with a huge smile on her face, thinking this was the beginning of something wonderful. She was wrong. It was actually the beginning of the most terrifying 3 months of her entire life. 2.5 months into her job, Sarah thought she had the best life ever. She loved taking care of Emma and Tommy. Every day was filled with laughter, games, and adventures. The kids had become like family to her, and she could see they felt the same way about her. Marcus was the perfect boss. He always asked about her mom's health, and even gave her extra money to help pay for the medicine. He never made her feel like she was just a servant. Instead, he treated her like she was an important part of the family. Everything seemed perfect. Too perfect. That's what Sarah should have realized was strange. It was a rainy Tuesday morning when everything changed forever. Marcus had to leave early for an important business meeting in another city. He wouldn't be back until late that night. "Make sure the kids do their homework," he told Sarah as he grabbed his expensive briefcase. "And don't let Tommy eat too much candy. He'll bounce off the walls." Sarah laughed. "Don't worry, we'll be fine." After Marcus left, Sarah made breakfast for the kids and helped them get ready for school. The day started out completely normal, but normal days have a way of turning into nightmares when you least expect it. That afternoon, while the kids were at school, Sarah was cleaning up the house like she always did. She was in Marcus's home office, dusting the expensive furniture, when she accidentally knocked over a small statue on his desk. The statue hit the floor and broke into pieces. Sarah felt terrible. She knew it was probably worth a lot of money. She got down on her hands and knees to pick up the broken pieces. That's when she saw it. A small hidden door in the bottom part of Marcus's desk had popped open when the statue fell. Inside the hidden compartment was a folder. A thick, brown folder stuffed with papers. Sarah knew she shouldn't look. It wasn't her business. But something about the way the folder was hidden made her curious. Why would Marcus hide papers in a secret place in his desk? She looked around to make sure she was alone. Then she carefully pulled out the folder and opened it. What she saw inside made her stomach feel sick. The first paper was a report about Wellington Industries' toy factories. But this wasn't a normal business report. This was a secret investigation that Marcus had ordered about his own company. As Sarah read the report, her hands started shaking. The paper said that the paint being used on the toys contained lead. Lead is a poison that can make children very sick or even kill them. The report said that thousands of toys had already been sold to stores all over the country. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was a note written in Marcus's own handwriting at the bottom of the report. "Do not tell anyone about this. Continue production. We'll deal with any problems later." Sarah couldn't believe what she was reading. Marcus knew his company was making toys that could poison children, and he decided to keep selling them anyway. She flipped to the next page and found another report. This one was about the company's factories in other countries where toys were made. The report said that children as young as 6 years old were working in the factories for 12 hours a day. They weren't being paid fair wages, and many of them were getting sick from the dangerous chemicals used to make the toys. Again, there was a note from Marcus. "This is not our problem. As long as production stays on schedule, continue current operations. Sarah felt like she was going to throw up. How could the man who was so kind to his own children not care about other children being hurt? She kept reading, hoping maybe there was some explanation that would make this okay. But every page made it worse. There were reports about toys that were breaking and hurting kids. Reports about workers in the factories getting injured because the machines weren't safe. Reports about the company dumping toxic waste into rivers where families got their drinking water. And every single report had the same type of note from Marcus: "Cover this up. Don't let anyone find out." Sarah sat on the floor of the office, surrounded by papers, feeling like her whole world had collapsed. The man she trusted, the man she worked for, the man who seemed to care about children, was actually hurting kids all over the world to make more money. She thought about Emma and Tommy. They had no idea their father was a monster. They loved him and trusted him, just like Sarah had. Sarah's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the papers. She knew she had to do something. But what? Who would believe that Marcus Wellington, one of the most respected businessmen in the city, was doing these terrible things? Then she found the most shocking document of all. It was a letter from a doctor at the children's hospital. The letter said that 15 children had come to the hospital in the past month with lead poisoning. All of them had been playing with toys made by Wellington Industries. The letter was dated 3 weeks ago. That meant children were getting sick right now, while Marcus acted like nothing was wrong. At the bottom of the doctor's letter was another note from Marcus that made Sarah's blood run cold. "Offer the families money to stay quiet. If they refuse, have our lawyers threaten them." Sarah realized she was crying. She was working for a man who was poisoning children and then threatening their families when they tried to get help. She heard a car door slam outside. Someone was home early. Panicking, Sarah quickly put all the papers back in the folder and shoved it into the hidden compartment. She picked up the pieces of the broken statue and threw them in the trash. Then she grabbed her cleaning supplies and ran to the kitchen, trying to look like she had been working there the whole time. A few minutes later, Marcus walked through the front door. "Sarah?" he called out. "I'm home early. The meeting got canceled." "I'm in the kitchen," Sarah called back, hoping her voice sounded normal. Marcus walked into the kitchen, smiling like he always did. But now, instead of seeing a kind man, Sarah saw a monster pretending to be nice. "How are the kids today?" he asked, sitting down at the kitchen table. "They were fine," Sarah said, not looking at him. She was afraid he would see the truth in her eyes. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked. "You look upset about something." Sarah's heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. "I'm just tired," she lied. Marcus studied her face carefully. For a moment, Sarah was terrified that he knew what she had discovered. But then he smiled again. "You work too hard," he said. "Why don't you take the rest of the day off? I can pick up the kids from school." Sarah nodded and quickly gathered her things. She needed to get out of that house and figure out what to do. As she walked to her car, Marcus watched her from the window. Sarah could feel his eyes on her, and it made her skin crawl. She drove home in a daze, her mind spinning with everything she had learned. By the time she got to her small apartment, she had made a decision. She was going to expose Marcus Wellington and save those children, no matter what it cost her. But Sarah had no idea that Marcus was much more dangerous than she realized. And she definitely didn't know that he had already figured out that she had discovered his secrets. As Sarah sat in her apartment that night, planning how to bring down Marcus Wellington, she didn't notice the black car parked across the street. And she didn't see the man inside the car talking on his phone, watching her every move. Marcus had suspected something was wrong the moment he saw Sarah's face in the kitchen. And Marcus Wellington didn't get to be a millionaire by ignoring his instincts. Sarah thought she was going to save those children, but first she was going to have to save herself. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a plan. She was going to make copies of all those documents and take them to the police. But when she arrived at the Wellington mansion, something felt different. Marcus was waiting for her at the front door. He wasn't smiling like usual. His blue eyes looked cold and scary. "Sarah," he said in a voice she had never heard before. "We need to talk." Sarah's heart started beating fast, but she tried to act normal. "Sure, what about?" "Let's go to my office." As they walked through the house, Sarah noticed that everything was too quiet. "Where are Emma and Tommy?" she asked. "They're staying with their grandmother for a few days," Marcus said. That was strange. Marcus never sent his kids away during the school week. Sarah started to feel really scared. When they got to the office, Marcus closed the door behind them. Sarah noticed he turned the lock. "Sit down," Marcus said, pointing to a chair. Sarah sat down, but Marcus didn't. Instead, he walked over to his desk and opened the hidden compartment. Sarah's stomach dropped when she saw him pull out the folder. "You know what this is, don't you?" Marcus asked, holding up the folder. Sarah thought about lying, but she could see in his eyes that he already knew the truth. "Yes," she whispered. Marcus nodded slowly. "I figured you found it when I saw how scared you looked yesterday. You're not a very good actress, Sarah." "How could you do those things?" Sarah asked, finding her courage. "Those are children getting hurt." Marcus laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. It was cold and mean. "You think you understand business, but you don't understand anything. Do you know how much money it would cost to fix all these problems? Millions and millions of dollars. I'd lose everything. So you'd rather let children get poisoned?" Sarah stood up, anger replacing her fear. "Those children aren't my responsibility," Marcus said. "My responsibility is to my company and my own kids. Besides, only a few kids get really sick from the lead. Most of them are fine." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You're a monster." Marcus's eyes got really angry. "I'm a businessman, and you're just a nanny who doesn't know when to mind her own business." "I'm going to tell everyone what you're doing," Sarah said. "I'm going to make sure you can't hurt any more children." Marcus walked over to a filing cabinet and pulled out another folder. "No, you're not." He opened the folder and showed Sarah what was inside. There were pictures of her going into a bank, pictures of her at her mom's doctor's office, and pictures of her little brother walking to school. "You see, Sarah, I know everything about you. I know your mom needs expensive medicine to stay alive. I know your little brother walks home from school alone every day. I know you have $20,000 in debt from your mom's medical bills." Sarah felt like ice water was running through her veins. "Are you threatening my family?" "I'm just pointing out facts," Marcus said with a fake smile. "Your mom's medicine costs $800 a month. If something happened to your job here, how would you pay for it? And your brother, he's only 12 years old. Anything could happen to a young boy walking alone on those dangerous streets." Sarah started crying. She realized that Marcus wasn't just evil, he was smart and dangerous. He had been watching her and her family this whole time. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus continued. "You're going to forget what you saw in those papers. You're going to keep being Emma and Tommy's nanny. And you're never going to talk about Wellington Industries to anyone, ever." "And if I don't?" Sarah asked, even though she was afraid of the answer. Marcus's smile got bigger and scarier. "Well, it would be such a shame if your mom couldn't get her medicine anymore. And accidents happen to children all the time." Sarah felt trapped. If she tried to expose Marcus, he would hurt her family. But if she stayed quiet, other children would keep getting poisoned. For 2 weeks, Sarah went to work every day, pretending everything was normal. She played with Emma and Tommy, but it was hard to look at them knowing what their father really was. The kids could tell something was wrong, but Sarah couldn't explain it to them. Every night, Sarah went home and cried. She felt like a coward for not stopping Marcus, but she was too scared for her family. Then, one day, everything changed. Sarah was picking up Emma from school when she overheard two moms talking. "Did you hear about the Martinez family?" one mom said. "Their little boy is in the hospital with lead poisoning. The doctors don't know if he's going to be okay." Sarah's heart stopped. Martinez was her last name, but she didn't know these people. Then she realized there were probably lots of families with her same last name who were being hurt by Marcus's toys. That night, Sarah made a decision. She couldn't save her own family by letting other families suffer. She had to find a way to stop Marcus, even if it was dangerous. She spent the next week making a plan. She figured out that Marcus was going to the annual business gala, a big fancy party where all the rich business people in the city got together. All the important people would be there. Investors, reporters, and government officials. If she could get into that party and tell everyone the truth about Marcus in front of all those people, He wouldn't be able to stop her or cover it up. But how could a nanny get into a party for millionaires? Then Sarah remembered something. A few weeks ago, Marcus had mentioned that he didn't have anyone to go to the gala with him. He said it would look bad to show up alone, but he didn't want to date anyone so soon after his wife's death. Sarah knew this was her chance. The next day, she went to Marcus's office. "I heard you don't have a date for the gala," she said, trying to sound casual. Marcus looked surprised. "That's right. Why?" "Well, I was thinking, maybe I could go with you. I know it sounds crazy, but people might think it's nice that you're close with your kid's nanny. Like you're a good family man." Marcus thought about it for a minute. "That's actually not a bad idea. It would make me look more human." Sarah felt sick that Marcus was using her to make himself look better. But this was her only chance. "I'll need to get you a dress and everything," Marcus said. "We can't have you looking like a nanny at the fanciest party of the year." A week later, on the night of the gala, Sarah stood in front of her mirror wearing the most beautiful dress she had ever seen. It was red and sparkly and made her feel like a princess. But she wasn't going to this party to have fun. She was going to war. Marcus picked her up in his fancy car, and they drove to the hotel where the gala was being held. As they walked into the ballroom together, Sarah looked around at all the rich, powerful people. These were the people who could stop Marcus if they knew the truth. For the first hour, Sarah stayed by Marcus's side, smiling and pretending to have a good time. But the whole time, she was looking for her chance. When Marcus went to the bathroom, Sarah quickly walked over to the stage. She had hidden copies of the documents in her purse. This was her moment. She walked up to the microphone, and that's when the whole room went quiet. That's when she started to tell everyone the truth about Marcus Wellington. And that's when the lights went out. In the darkness, Sarah heard footsteps running toward the stage. Someone grabbed her arm roughly. "You made a big mistake," a voice whispered in her ear. It was Marcus. But Sarah had made a bigger plan than Marcus realized. Before she went to the gala, she had made copies of all the documents and mailed them to every newspaper in the city. Even if Marcus stopped her tonight, the truth would still come out tomorrow. When the lights came back on, Sarah was gone. Marcus stood alone on the stage, looking panicked. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said into the microphone, trying to sound calm. "I'm sorry for the confusion. There was just a small technical problem." But it was too late. Sarah had said enough. People in the crowd were already taking out their phones, calling reporters and posting on social media about what they had just heard. The next morning, Sarah's story was on the front page of every newspaper in the city. The police arrested Marcus Wellington for child endangerment and fraud. Wellington Industries was shut down, and all the poisonous toys were taken off the shelves. Marcus tried to threaten Sarah's family like he had promised, but it was too late. He was in jail, and everyone knew what he had done. Sarah lost her job, of course, but she didn't care. She had saved those children, and that was more important than anything else. Emma and Tommy went to live with their grandmother. Before they left, Emma hugged Sarah tight. "I don't understand why Daddy is in trouble," Emma said sadly. "Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices," Sarah explained. "But that doesn't mean you and Tommy are bad. You're still the most wonderful kids in the world." 6 months later, Sarah got a new job working for a children's safety organization. She spent her days making sure companies couldn't hurt kids the way Marcus had. And every night, she went home to her family, knowing they were safe and that she had done the right thing. Sometimes doing the right thing is scary. Sometimes it means losing everything you have. But Sarah learned that some things, like protecting children, are more important than being safe. Marcus Wellington thought he could scare Sarah into staying quiet. He thought that because he had money and power, he could do whatever he wanted. But he was wrong. In the end, one brave nanny with a folder full of papers was stronger than all his millions of dollars. And that's how Sarah Martinez, a simple nanny from a poor family, brought down one of the most powerful men in the city and saved hundreds of children from being hurt. The shocking move that left the whole company speechless wasn't just about revealing Marcus's secrets. It was about a young woman finding the courage to stand up to a monster, even when it meant risking everything she loved. Sarah proved that you don't need to be rich or powerful to make a difference. Sometimes all you need is a brave heart and the determination to do what's right. One year after the gala that changed everything, Sarah sat in her new office at the Children's Safety Foundation. Through her window, she could see the old Wellington Industries building. It was empty now, with "For Sale" signs covering the windows. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Emma. "Sarah, guess what? I won the art contest at my new school. I painted a picture of you because you're my hero. Grandma says maybe you can come visit us next weekend?" Sarah smiled as she typed back, "I would love that. I'm so proud of you, Emma." Emma and Tommy had been through a lot this year. It was hard for them to understand why their father was in prison, but their grandmother was taking good care of them, and they were slowly healing. Tommy had started seeing a counselor who helped him understand that his father's bad choices didn't mean Tommy was bad too. Emma had thrown herself into art, painting beautiful pictures that showed her feelings. Both kids were doing better in school and had made new friends. Sarah's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Detective Rodriguez, the police officer who had worked on Marcus's case. "Sarah, I have some news," Detective Rodriguez said. "Marcus Wellington's trial is finally over. He was found guilty on all charges. He's going to prison for 15 years. Sarah felt a mix of relief and sadness. She was glad that Marcus couldn't hurt anyone else, but she still felt sorry for Emma and Tommy, who had lost their father. "There's something else," Detective Rodriguez continued. "Because of your bravery in exposing Wellington Industries, we've been able to help a lot of families. Do you remember the Martinez family whose little boy was in the hospital?" Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She had never forgotten about that little boy whose name was so similar to hers. "Yes, I remember. Is he okay?" "He's doing great. The doctors were able to treat his lead poisoning because we caught it early thanks to you. His parents wanted me to tell you that their son is healthy and back to playing with safe toys." After Sarah hung up the phone, she looked at the stack of letters on her desk. Every week, she received thank you notes from families whose children had been saved because she spoke up. Parents whose kids had been working in those dangerous factories overseas. Families whose children had been hurt by broken toys. They all wrote to thank her for being brave enough to tell the truth. But the letter that meant the most to her was from a girl named Lucy, who was 8 years old, just like Emma. "Dear Sarah," the letter said in messy kid handwriting, "my mommy told me that you saved me from getting sick from bad toys. She said you were very brave. I want to be brave like you when I grow up. I drew you a picture of a superhero because that's what you are. Thank you for keeping me safe. Love, Lucy." Sarah kept Lucy's letter and drawing on her desk where she could see them every day. Whenever her job got difficult, she looked at that picture and remembered why she did this work. Sarah's job at the Children's Safety Foundation was challenging but rewarding. She traveled around the country, visiting toy factories and making sure they were safe. She worked with other companies to help them understand why it was important to protect children, even if it cost more money. Some business owners got angry when Sarah told them to change their unsafe practices. But Sarah had learned something important from her experience with Marcus. She was stronger than she thought she was. When people tried to bully her or threaten her, she stood up to them. She had faced down a millionaire CEO, so she could handle anyone. Sarah's mom was doing much better too. The stress of worrying about money had been making her sicker, but now that Sarah had a good job with health insurance, her mom could get all the medicine she needed. Sarah's little brother was thriving in school and had joined the chess club. "I'm proud of you, Mija," her mom said one evening as they ate dinner together. "You risked everything to protect children you didn't even know. That takes real courage." "I was so scared, Mom," Sarah admitted. "There were times when I thought I should just stay quiet and keep my job." "But you didn't," her mom said, reaching across the table to squeeze Sarah's hand. "You did what was right, even when it was hard. That's what makes you a hero." Sarah still thought about Marcus sometimes. She wondered if he ever felt sorry for what he had done. Did he think about all the children he had hurt? Did he miss Emma and Tommy? A few months after the trial, Sarah received an unexpected letter. It was from Marcus, written from his prison cell. "Sarah," the letter said, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to write this. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, and I know now that I was wrong. I let my greed and fear make me into a monster. I hurt innocent children to make money, and I threatened you and your family to keep my secrets. I am truly sorry for all the pain I caused. I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know that I realize now how brave you were. You did what I should have done from the beginning. You protected children. I hope Emma and Tommy will forgive me someday, but I understand if they don't. I hope you can find some peace knowing that because of you, no other children will be hurt by Wellington Industries. Thank you for being braver than I ever was. Marcus. Sarah read the letter 3 times. She wasn't sure if Marcus really meant what he said, or if he was just feeling sorry for himself because he was in prison, but she decided it didn't matter. What mattered was that he couldn't hurt anyone else. Sarah never wrote back to Marcus, but she did keep his letter. She kept it as a reminder that people's actions have consequences, and that sometimes the only way to stop bad people from hurting others is to be brave enough to speak up. The best part of Sarah's new life was that she still got to see Emma and Tommy regularly. Their grandmother, Mrs. Wellington, had invited Sarah to visit whenever she wanted. "You're the closest thing to a mother those children have had since their mama died," Mrs. Wellington told Sarah. "Marcus may have been my son, but what he did was unforgivable. You saved those babies, and you'll always be family to us." On weekends, Sarah would visit Emma and Tommy at their grandmother's house. They would paint pictures, build with blocks, and play hide and seek just like they used to. The kids were different now, quieter sometimes, more serious, but they were healing. One Saturday, as Sarah was helping Tommy build a castle out of blocks, he looked up at her with his big brown eyes. "Sarah, are you glad you told everyone about my daddy?" he asked. Sarah thought carefully about her answer. "I'm glad that children are safer now," she said. "But I'm sad that it hurt you and Emma." "I'm sad too," Tommy said. "But Emma says you're like a superhero because you protect kids. Is that true?" Sarah smiled and hugged him. "I'm not a superhero, Tommy. I'm just someone who cares about kids like you and Emma. Sometimes caring about people means you have to do scary things to keep them safe." "I want to protect kids too when I grow up," Tommy said, "just like you." As Sarah drove home that evening, she thought about how much her life had changed in just 1 year. She had gone from being a scared nanny who was afraid to speak up to being someone who fought for children's safety every day. She still had nightmares sometimes about that night at the gala. She still felt nervous when she had to confront powerful people about unsafe practices. But she had learned that being brave didn't mean you weren't scared. It meant you did the right thing even when you were scared. The most important thing Sarah had learned was that one person really can make a difference. She was just a nanny from a poor family, but she had brought down a multi-million-dollar company and saved hundreds of children from being hurt. Every time Sarah looked at Lucy's drawing on her desk, or read a thank you letter from a grateful parent, or saw Emma and Tommy's smiling faces, she knew that everything she had gone through had been worth it. Sarah Martinez had started out as a quiet nanny who just wanted to take care of 2 kids and help her sick mother. But she had become something much more powerful. She had become a voice for children who couldn't speak for themselves. And that shocking move at the gala that left everyone speechless? It had turned into something even more shocking. It had changed the world for thousands of children, making them safer and giving them hope. Sarah proved that heroes don't always wear capes or have superpowers. Sometimes they're just ordinary people who find extraordinary courage when children need protecting. And every day, Sarah woke up knowing that she had used her voice to make the world a little bit better, one child at a time.